Hi all, we are revisiting the 16-year-old Compaq desktop PC. Now what I've done is I've used the recovery petition to reset Windows XP to factory settings, and then I installed Service Pack 3. Prior to that I actually had to apply a fix which is AMD CPU specific prior to the Service Pack 3 installation, because there was a bug that would cause the system to continuously reboot after installing that service pack. So I installed that fix, and after the service pack installation everything was fine. Now that fix, if you need to do it, is easily found on the internet. It's just a simple registry changed, and then I applied some optimizations, stopped unnecessary processes and services. Then what I did is I benchmarked the system using freeware programs at 3D Mark from 2003, 3D Mark from 2005. I could have run those versions which were introduced a bit later on, but 2003, 2005 this system would more than be able to cope with it. So I ran it using the factory reset, and also the graphics card that came with it, which was a 6200 GeForce Turbo Cache and the original 1 gig of RAM this shipped with. And for benchmark 2003, I just launched graphics showing that the final score was 2804, and for 2005 the result was 1001, so nothing to write home about really. What I did is I put the maximum 4 gig into this system and the EVGA graphics card with the most recent XP drivers, and I ran the same benchmarks. And for 2003, just get to that, 2003 and get a massive boost to 186229 was the final score on that. And for 2005 the benchmark was just get to that, this is a graphic I took, 10249, so well worth upgrading. Then what I did is I ran the internal gaming benchmarks from Fear, and here's the graphic for that, and the minimum was 46 FPS, average 63 FPS, maximum 93 FPS. Now that is a well optimized game, so you can still get decent frame rates even with that graphics card and 1 gig of RAM. Now using the same settings with the upgraded system, as you can see, it's quite a significant upload. So we're getting a minimum of 88, average 142, a maximum of 233 frames per second. So well worth doing. So what I want to do now, I'm going to show you some gaming benchmarks. Now again, I'm going to just run Bandicam purely for the frames per second counter, but I'm sure we'd grab a few frames back if I didn't run that. And what I've got planned for the future actually is I've got a dual core CPU for that motherboard socket, so I'm going to install that and run the same benchmarks. And then there's an unofficial Service Pack 4 which has been created, and it's freely available on the internet for Windows XP, and that includes all the updates and security fixes after Service Pack 3. So I'll be surprised what that can do if it increases performance. so look out for that in another video. So what I'm going to do now is load up some games. This first game is Assassin's Creed. Now, as with all these games, what I'll do is, where possible, I'll try and increase the graphical quality settings without compromising the frames per second, just to get a good balance. Now with this one, I've got it on the lowest quality settings, but it still looks alright to my eyes, and I suppose on average, without too much going on, and it's an outdoor area, without too much getting on, we're getting nudging 30 frames per second, which is not too bad for an exploration game. So really it's just a matter of, as I said before, trying to find the right balance between graphical quality settings and frames per second. Okay, so that's Assassin's Creed. Well, this is the first Bioshock, and at the moment we're getting nudging 50 frames per second, which is pretty good. It's a nice graphics engine, this is. You can also get a few frames per second back by lowering the resolution as well as the graphical qualities. A lot of these games do, you can like nudge certain settings down, like the textures. So it's just a matter of experimenting which you're most comfortable with. Okay, so that's Bioshock, which is more than playable. Next game up is Borderlands. It's an unusual engine, this is. It's got like a sort of comic book type look to it, but it still seems to be a decent game. So at the moment, we're not a lot going on, just running around outside. It's easy above 30 frames per second. So I'd say this is certainly a playable game. I'm sure the frame rate will go down once things start happening. So yeah, that's Borderlands. And this is the good old favourite Crysis, and at the moment we're getting above 30 frames per second, which is good, and I'm sure that's going to drop just a little bit when things start happening. And I've said time and time again, this engine still stands up even today, I think, especially with the remastered version they've just launched. But there's no way that this PC will play that. Okay, so that's Crysis. Now, as this machine doesn't have problems playing the first Fear game, I thought I'd try Fear 2. So at the moment, with not a lot going on, this is indoors, getting 60 frames per second. So you probably try this, try the settings out with a slightly increase on texture quality. I'd leave the resolution as it is, so just have a play with the texture settings. So moving to outdoors, and it's still maintaining 60 frames per second, which is quite decent. And I think this is a slightly improved engine compared to the first Fear as well. Right, so that's Fear 2.